Hey everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and it is now time for the full in-depth review of the Galaxy S6 and the Galaxy S6 Edge. So I've had these devices for a couple of months now, and I am now comfortable to talk about them. We also received an update for the Galaxy S6 T-Mobile version. This is at least the one that has the update right now in the United States, Lollipop 5.1.1. I want to do this review in two parts. It's a bit of an easier format for myself, so please make sure to look out for part two. We'll try to get that up as soon as possible after this one. So what I want to do right now is talk about the goods, the bads, and the uglies, and everything I can possibly think of to help you decide which of these devices that you should go for, or maybe help you decide if neither of them is your cup of tea. So let's go ahead and check them out. So first, let's take a look at the build and the designs of these phones. Here we have a Galaxy S6. This is an AT&T version. We have my T-Mobile Galaxy S6 Edge. And then also I've got an AT&T Galaxy S6 Edge. I just have all of these here just to do a bit of comparisons between them to see how the performance is, especially across carriers. I got curious. So thanks AT&T for letting me borrow these. So I've been playing around with both of these hand in hand for a couple of weeks now, and I can say that after playing with them, I do like the Galaxy S6 better than I do the Edge. I do like the Edge, it did grow on me, but there's just something about the way that the Galaxy S6 feels in hand and the way that it looks. It's just a lot more comfortable to hold without those edgy bits. Another thing that eventually bothered me about the Galaxy S6 Edge was that there's quite a bit of glare that you can see here on the sides. For some people that won't matter and will be negligible, but for me it became annoying eventually. And then I wasn't too appreciative of the color shifting that I can see here on the edges. Now depending on which phone you get, I see that it looks more extreme or less extreme, but that's just something to note. So what we have here are two phones that are essentially made out of glass and a bit of aluminum here. Looking around the phones, they have pretty much the same footprint besides the bend in the glass. And you can see that on the Galaxy S6 that it's got a bit of a bend, a little bit more of a flare look to it. It's the same thing on the top here. I quite like that. And of course the sides are going to be different. But just starting looking at the bottom, they look exactly the same to me otherwise. We've got the speaker down here at the bottom. We've got our microphone. You've also got a micro USB charging port and standard headphone jack. On the side, we've got our volume buttons that are in the same place. On the left-hand side, we've got our power button. And you can see that here is the SIM tray on the Galaxy S6, where on the Galaxy S6 Edge, we have it at the top here. So on the top, same place for the infrared blasters, different placement for the microphones. On the back, we've got our 16 megapixel camera, we've got a single LED flash, and also these sensors here that work for a lot of the health-related stuff on this phone. Now don't let the curve of this display fool you. A lot of people tell me that, oh, the display is skinnier on this phone. They don't think that the resolution on these phones are the same. Yes, they are. It's 2K or Quad HD display on both of these. It's just that this is curved a little bit. But here we have the camera on the front, we've got our receiver, we've got our notification LED and our ambient light sensor, or proximity sensor. We've got our home button and our fingerprint sensor. I will talk about that in a little bit. So also on the bottoms here, we have our capacitive buttons. We've got the recent app button and also the back button. Now I find that what's going on here is interesting because Samsung did try to simplify this phone. They got rid of some menus, and this phone is now pretty much defaulted to having these key light buttons come on every single time that you touch the display, and they don't have any way of disabling it. On the AT&T variant, if you go underneath the settings here, underneath the display, you can see that we have touch key light duration. You can have it always on, always off, 6 seconds or 1.5 seconds. So I just like to keep it off. But this same menu item is not available here. You can see on the T-Mobile variant, you don't have that option, but there is an app that I simply got from the Play Store, Galaxy button lights. And you can see I can turn them off as well and then save that. And now it's not bothering me. So you can check that out from the Google Play Store if this is any bother to you. So how about the durability of these phones? Well, you do have a phone here that's primarily made of glass. You've also got that nice aluminum band here. But having a phone that is entirely made out of glass is a choice, and you have to realize that this phone, if it falls just right on the front or the back, will crack. It doesn't really matter that it has Gorilla Glass 4. I know that Corning preaches that if you drop it face down that it can survive up to a meter 85% of the time. I don't really fully remember. It's rubbish, basically, because if it falls flat, it's going to crack. Gorilla Glass 4 is supposed to be a little bit better at protecting from deeper scratches, although ironically, my Galaxy S6 Edge was scratched all over the display, simply out of the box with a deep scratch on there. That was in my initial review of my Galaxy S6 Edge. So yes, this glass can scratch, it can get quite banged up. I do have a solution though. A lot of people ask all the time, what case should I use? Now I did make a video, maybe you saw it. I teamed up with Evolutive Labs to test out their Rhino Shield. I am not creating an ad right now, I'm just telling you of my experiences because I really do, by myself, recommend this case. This is a very minimalistic bumper, so that if you want to keep your phone nice and protected, you don't have to get a big, bulky case for it. They also provide screen protectors that protect from impact as well. It looks nice, it feels nice. In the video, I had a lot of fun smashing around a Galaxy S6. I trashed that thing. I banged it around, I punted it. It was not nice to the Galaxy S6, and it survived everything but being dropped from the second time from a parking structure that was like 40 feet tall. And you can see after that, yeah, you do have a lot of nice cracks. This is actually the digitizer underneath that's cracked. It's made out of glass as well. The screen protector did its job, however. You can see that this phone has the ability to bend if it smashes really hard down on the ground. But in general, everyday life and in even some insane situations, this bumper does keep your phone well protected. Oops, while keeping it nice and slim and able to see that pretty glass. So let's move on to talking about the performance of these phones. I just recently got the Lollipop 5.1.1 update on the T-Mobile variant. And I must say that I've been testing both variants, seeing how fast they are, seeing if there's any changes in benchmarks, and the update really doesn't change anything that I could perceive. Go ahead, placebos galore, claim what you want, but I didn't see any performance differences between the two of these. So how about specs of these phones? Both of these phones have the same specs. I know that they look a little bit different. You do have the inductive charging on both of these. Both of the batteries are locked in. This one has just a negligibly bigger battery. So both of these have the Exynos 7420 SoC inside of them. We've got an 8-core CPU. So there are 4 cores clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. Those are your Cortex A53s. Then you've also got 4 cores that are clocked at 2.1 gigahertz. Those are your Cortex A57s. Those are the higher powered cores. We've got our Mali T60MP8 GPU and 3 gigabytes of RAM, UFS 2.0 storage. So very, very nice, fast phone. This is a phone that has been pretty much the leader in all the benchmarks that I have seen. So here we have Samsung's last flagship. This is Geekbench 3. This is the Snapdragon 805. And even in comparison to the HTC One M9, you can see just how well that the S6 does in comparison with the single-core scores and the multi-core scores. Really nice and fast CPU that we have on this thing here. Now here we have the base Mark II results. We can see the overall scores here. Now benchmarks are synthetic, yes, I know, but I also have some actual better tests that I've been able to show, but just looking at the overall here, I'm really quite pleased how the system score is doing. That's going to be the CPU scores. We've also got memory, which is going to be the storage score. It just surprises me how much faster the storage is on the S6 as compared to the M9. Then of course we can see graphics here. Now this has a lot more pixels on the display. That Quad HD display has a lot more pixels than what we can see on the M9. So that does explain how we're seeing some differences in the graphics scores. I am seeing that same trend here on the M9, where you can see with the on-screen tests that it does better than the Galaxy S6. I am blaming the sheer amount of pixels that we have on this display, but you can see it does really quite well with all the off-screen tests that we see here. Even getting better down here at T-Rex, 56 frames per second versus 48. I do like gawking at the differences that I can see between my Galaxy S6 and now my almost seemingly underpowered Galaxy Note 4. So really a much more powerful processor here. Even though both of these phones have that Quad HD display, same amount of pixels to push around. I'm excited to see what's going to come out in the Galaxy Note 5. Now we can look at benchmarks all day and try to draw conclusions, but what really matters is real-world use. We have GameBench here, which really helps to look at how it scores in gameplay, or how frame rates look in gameplay. So we have a median frame rate of 47 frames per second versus 37 frames per second underneath Riptide GP2. Now you can really kick up the effects on this game. Admittedly, you can't max the Galaxy S6 out for some reason, because if you try to, it crashes. So I ran it to nearly maxed out, and I just aligned the same thing on the M9 here. So just looking at the frame rate trends, we're able to see that both of the devices kind of vary in terms of the gameplay. Though looking at the least score we have here, it looks like the Galaxy S6 doesn't fall down to the lowest frame rate that this one does. I can see that we're starting out at a lot of 60 frames per second in the beginning on the Galaxy S6, and it kind of starts dropping afterwards. We're probably seeing some thermal throttling here. But what I really notice with the M9 is that it's really kept from going too high. We don't ever really see it hitting 60 frames per second. And I'm just going to blame that on HTC not wanting to have this device overheat with that Snapdragon 810 SoC inside of it. But I really see that the Galaxy S6, even though it has all those pixels to push around, does hold its own in gameplay, even graphically intense gameplay. It really pushes that GPU there. So not too shabby. Now in terms of performance around the interface, it does look nice and snappy to me. Probably the most snappy of TouchWiz's until you get stuck underneath their flipboard type thingy, the My Magazine or whatever they're calling it now. I can see some frame drops just a little bit here and there. I've never seen TouchWiz be without any frame drops at all. But I think that it is more than satisfying. This is their least invasive TouchWiz so far. They really did try to tone down the menus and not make it look so bloated. And I do have to say that, yeah, this is my favorite TouchWiz so far as TouchWiz goes anyway. What I really do like, though, is just how fast that UFS 2.0 storage is. It does great for opening larger apps, especially. Just opening apps in general, yes, makes it very nice, snappy, and quick. So here we have The Room. Dink! And this one loads pretty quickly. Takes a couple of seconds. And there you are. Loaded. And then loaded. So this one takes a couple more seconds, I see, to open up applications. Let's go ahead and do another one. So here we have Riptide, GP2. Loaded. And loaded. So even though the S6 is very quick at opening applications, unfortunately I see that it's very aggressive at shutting down applications. Now luckily, because this device is so quick at opening applications, it's kind of a mild annoyance, but it really shouldn't be happening. And even with the 5.1.1 update, it's still doing this. Some people are saying, no, it's been fixed, but it's doing the same thing here. So let's go ahead and launch several applications. Let's launch Chrome. Let's go to something like, I don't know, YouTube. Now let's go out. Let's open up Riptide. The Room. And so now that we've got a couple of things open, let's go ahead and cycle between Chrome again, hitting on YouTube. You can see that the Galaxy S6 has to reload. That's immediately annoying. Let's go ahead and pick Riptide. This is still open, and you can see that this is having to reload. And The Room. It's still open, but you can see that a large majority of things get shut down. And I find this to be a little bit annoying, but again, because this is so fast, it's really not too horrible. But it's really not excusable either. So I'm really hoping that Samsung is able to fix this. So a very nice, fast phone, great SoC inside this thing, performance is wonderful. The only thing that I really complain about is just that it's not very good at multitasking because it's shutting down your apps. As soon as you exit out and go into something else for a few seconds, if you go back into it, it shuts it down. Oh well, what can I say? So now looking at the interface of the phone, I really do like and appreciate that Samsung has made this more concise. They've gotten rid of a lot of menus. They say it's got 45% less bloat, menus, whatever. You can see that both of these phones here look different. Here we have the AT&T version. You can see how the menu system is, and then we have the T-Mobile version. I think this is how the default looked. This is how it looked to me at Mobile World Congress, so it looks like AT&T just has a little bit of a different layout. And no, by myself, I'm not able to go and adjust the menus. That's one thing that I do find a bit annoying. You can't switch between these different views here. I think I like the default layout better, but I really would like the ability to change around the menu myself. Unfortunately, we've lost the ability to turn on and off the pop-up window feature, so sometimes if I'm using one thumb from the top and I'm just trying to swipe downward, I accidentally access this pop-up window feature. You can see that we have it on both. You can swipe from either corner. And this is a cool feature that we had on the Galaxy Note 4. I really like this feature. If you want, you can go ahead and make little bubbly orb thingies and keep them out of the way. You can open up to 5 applications. But I think I really wouldn't mind if Samsung added back the ability to turn this off or on, because I think it's quite easy to make happen. We've also got our multi-window feature, and you just go ahead and pick one of your recent apps, or a different app of your choice that allows you to choose. I don't want to forget some other classical pop-up tricks, such as if you hold down on a recent application, you can see there you go, you've got your little pop-up window. You can drag it around, of course, and if you want to go back to full screen, you can hold up to the top, it goes full screen. You can drag it back down again. You can touch on it, and you can shrink it. So I find that to be pretty functional. My favorite feature has been the theming option, so holding down, we get to themes. We've got a theme store. This is just brilliant. This is something that we're seeing a lot more from these companies now. I either love this space theme or this stud silver. It just really gives you the ability to customize your phone. So it's going to change icons for you, sounds for you, the look of the keyboard for you. I really like the design of the keyboard here. It even continues to be themed underneath the dialer. I really liked the Avengers themed type dialers. So yay to personalization. And of course, we've also got features that are exclusive to the Galaxy S6 Edge. They're kind of neat, but honestly, I find them to be unnecessary and gimmicky. I don't find these features worth an extra $100, although just the look of the phone is cool, and maybe you can justify that, but the features are just kinda there. So we've got a little bit of a preview of each of the features up here. It tells you what they are. If you need more information, you can hit Help, and it will tell you all what you need to know. But just starting with edge lighting, this is kind of fun. This is a big feature that they advertise. So if you place your phone down, the idea is that you have 5 favorite contacts, and if you get a call from one of those 5 favorite contacts, they are color-coded. So you can see you've got these different color codes here. And depending on who it is, it's going to flash the color that you see here. Unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to see underneath the bright lighting, and who's going to want to face their phone flat down on a table anyway? You want to protect your screen. So edge lighting is a feature that I've used once or twice and then just turned off. It's one of those things that was fun to show people, and then I didn't care anymore. And then we have People Edge, which I just showed you here. So you have your 5 favorite contacts. Now what's really cool about the people setting though is that if there's a missed call or a missed notification, you can pull from the lock screen. It will be color-coded and it will say if you missed a call, email, or message. Now unfortunately this is only Samsung applications, so you can't use something like Google Plus or Gmail. So it almost makes it a little bit moot. Cool idea, but really not there yet. And then you've got information stream. This is one that I just kind of am left with scratching my head about. So with the Galaxy Note 4 Edge, it's got a little bit of screen on the side that is always on, it's always functioning. Now with this phone, this information stream is only available when the display is off. So when I get a notification, I am trained to pick up my phone, hit the home button, and look at the lock screen to see what that notification is. Never am I going to sit and do this type of crazy oddball thing. For one thing, it's very hard to access. Oh, there you go. In the time doing that, many times I could have picked up my phone and looked. I guess that's kind of cool. You can see some news and things. I guess you could call this a power-saving feature, maybe. But I don't think that it's actually very useful. I am happy to see, though, that Samsung is allowing third-party applications for the notifications here. So if you want to use Gmail or Google Plus or whatever, you can choose to have those notifications on. But really, I've never done this naturally. It's just difficult to do. If you use the side of your finger, I usually get more success. It's just a fun thing, but it's kind of useless. There is one feature that I do find to be quite useful, and I like it. It's the night clock mode. So when you turn night clock on, you can choose your parameters, start time, end time. So when you turn off the display, if you give it a couple of seconds, you get some very, very faint numbers that show up to give you the time. So if you set this on a nightstand, you can look over and you can see the time. That's brilliant. There was a remark that I had earlier. I did receive an update and it did change the behavior. What I was saying is that you would have the numbers show for the time and you would think that the rest of the display would be black, but it was actually glowing. That really didn't look right and it was kind of disruptive because your eyes are very sensitive in the dark. So I'd look over at my nightstand and I'd see this thing and it would just be glowing very brightly. So after the 5.1.1 update, it is now completely pitch black. Only the numbers show. I do see that the AT&T version that hasn't been updated is still doing the glowing thing. So thankfully, yes, the update did fix that weird glowing issue. Overall, I think that the Edge features are kind of cool, but really gimmicky. The only one that's really practical is going to be the clock one. But it does make the phone look cool after all. I think probably the best interface feature of them all is going to be the double tap on the home button, and it opens up the camera very, very fast for you in less than a second. Let's do that again. Tap, tap. And there it is. The last interface feature that I really like and find very useful is the ability to just have the phone off like this, put your finger there, and it unlocks for you, just like an iPhone. If you have been a fan of how the iPhone works to be able to access your phone, unlock it just with the touch of a finger, this does the same thing. I find that the iPhone's is a little bit more responsive, but if you really get in there and program your finger from all different angles, from half on your pad, half off your pad, just really try to get all angles of your thumb on there, I find that it works pretty reliably. So interface-wise, I overall like what Samsung has done with the phone. I like how they have simplified some things, although I wonder if they have oversimplified some things. So if you're somebody who is not a Samsung person or you haven't seen any of the Galaxy features, it would probably benefit you to go underneath the Help section you have underneath Settings, and it will tell you everything that you need to know, including stuff about the multi-window and pop-up window features. Buried way down here at the bottom, but it's there. They do have the ability for you to figure everything out in one way or another. So it's not perfect, but it's overall pretty good. Now the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this part 1 of the All You Need to Know review is about the display. So we have a 5.1-inch display, Quad HD, 577 pixels per inch. So we've got 1440 by 2560. And it just looks fantastic. The pixel density is phenomenal. You can't tell that this is a Diamond Matrix Pentile display anymore. There are no complaints by me. An interesting display difference that I see between the Galaxy S6 and the Galaxy S6 Edge is just how much brighter at 100% that the Galaxy S6 gets. I'm not talking about the auto brightness, I'm talking about actually sliding it to 100% brightness. It may not be obvious here on camera, but I can really tell the difference in just everyday life, how much brighter this display gets. Now, when you toggle on the auto brightness, it does have the ability to get much, much brighter, this Galaxy S6 Edge display. But I do prefer the likes of the brighter looking Galaxy S6. Sometimes I do wish I could get just a little bit more brightness out of this guy. Another thing about using the Galaxy S6 Edge, as I had pointed out earlier, is you get quite a bit of glare here on the sides, so that can be kind of distracting when you are watching video content. That is if you are somewhere that has a lot of ambient lighting. And then there's just a little bit of color shifting on the side. I see that some of the devices have the color shifting worse than others, but I do see that it's there. Now let's get into talking about calibration. I have 3 devices on me. This one, and my own. So I've had a chance to look at the calibrations and compare, and they all look pretty similar. One thing that I like about Samsung is that, yes, they do have an AMOLED display, and an AMOLED display is able to show a very broad range of colors. We call this a wide gamut display. But if you're somebody who doesn't like to have punchy colors, at least they give you the ability to switch to the basic mode. So we've got several modes here. We've got the basic mode, which would be the closest to any type of a calibration standard, sRGB. That's what all the content on the interwebs is, even the Android OS operating system, iPhone operating system, Windows operating system, even Netflix, YouTube, all that content is meant for sRGB. That would be the basic mode. So if you want your colors to look the most accurate while using this display, use the basic mode, and all the content that you're watching or looking at shouldn't look too off. Then you've got the AMOLED photo mode, which is a wider gamut mode. They say that this matches the Adobe RGB gamut, but I have to disagree. Whenever I do my measurements, I see that the coordinates are wrong. They're chromacity coordinates. But let's just call this a wide gamut mode. If you're looking at this here, you can see that you are getting more colors. And this actually happens to be the mode that I prefer. A little punchy, but not extremely overboard. And then we've got the AMOLED Cinema mode, and you can see that going between these 2 different modes here, that the whites change to a more blue tone. So this is the incredibly oversaturated mode, very contrasty, punchy effect type mode. It's one of those modes that really captures attention in the store, but it's really gaudy for me. Then you've got the adaptive display mode. Optimize the color range, saturation, and sharpness of your display automatically. This mode may not be compatible with third-party apps. This is what it's on by default when you get the phone. So let's talk about that basic mode then, since that is the only mode on here that's really worth talking about, since it does match a calibration standard, and that calibration standard matches with the content that we are consuming. So I see that the gamut, or the range of color that the basic mode is hitting, is pretty close to sRGB. It looks pretty spot on some of the models that I have. I do notice that the white points on all 3 of them, this white that you see here, is a little bit too yellowish. So the white point is a little bit warmer than it should be. It should be around 6,500 Kelvin, but instead it's more like 6,100 Kelvin. So when looking at the balance of red, blue, and green, I can see that there's just not enough blue in there, but it doesn't look terrible. I also see that the saturation points aren't all screwy. They should be, ideally, all in a straight line and evenly spaced, at least on this CIE 1931 diagram that I have here. The other thing that I notice is that the gamma is too high. To reach the sRGB calibration standard, it should be gamma 2.2, but it goes up to gamma 2.4. So its gamma is too high, and what that does is it will not only darken the image a little bit, but it does saturate the image a little bit as well. But overall, it looks pretty good. It's the mode that I would go for if I don't want the faces to look overly red, or if I don't want greens to be too neon looking, for example. Now this display is not perfect. If you're somebody who watches a lot of content on your phone, you might notice that it has a little bit of an issue with blacks. Yes, we have a very great contrast ratio on this phone, but if you look at the darker parts of an image, just say dark gray going down to black, things can kind of look a little bit splotchy. That's because it's got a little bit of black clipping going on. It's not a smooth gradient down to black, unfortunately. An interesting thing is that when you switch around the brightness with the toggle, you can see that the behavior of the display changes depending on where that brightness is. So sometimes you'll have more black clipping than other times. So is this the perfect display? No, but it is pretty darn good, and I really like it. So thank you everybody for watching part 1 of the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge full in-depth review. I will be continuing on with part 2. If there's anything in this section that you have not seen me cover, feel free to ask it in the comment section below. I'm going to be covering things like the camera, the battery life, connectivity, those types of things, but if there's any other questions you have, please ask them. Along with the LG G4, I definitely rate the Galaxy S6 as one of my top 5 favorites. At the end of when all of these new phones are being released and all is said and done, I'm going to be making a top 5 video, so this definitely reaches one of the top 5. So let me know what you think so far about this device, and have a good night, everybody.